And we should be live. All right. Well, I want to welcome everybody to today's presentation. Please excuse me if I start coughing. I've been sick. But today we're going to be talking about doing more with less, the employee experience. And this is the first one of our employee experience series around doing more with less. And we're going to be featuring Viva Goals. We have a very special guest speaker today. We've got Don Campbell, who is a senior director from Viva Goals. But before we get started, we have some housekeeping and a couple items I just want to quickly cover. As always, this session is brought to you by our Microsoft Healthcare and Life Sciences group. You can always find us, and you'll find the recording from today as well as links to resources on our blog at aka.ms/HLS blog. That's aka.ms/HLS blog. So some webinar housekeeping. As you're joining today, you'll notice your cameras and your microphones are on mute. We've enabled chat so you can post questions in the chat. If appropriate, if you want to raise your hand, we do have gestures enabled, so you could raise your hand. You can also react by clapping, hearting, and doing those kind of things. But if you could post your questions in the chat, and we'll be monitoring that as we go through. With all the people joining, it would just be too unruly if we had everybody with voice as well as video. So we've disabled that for you coming in. So starting off today's thing before I hand it over to Don. So a couple of things. When we're looking at today's workforce crisis that's out there, there's a couple of things that we've noticed here in healthcare and life sciences that we're hearing over and over again from our customers. Number one, during the pandemic, with a whole movement of people, some out of the workplace and remote, we had a more of a hybrid type workforce, people working in, subject to all kinds of stressors. We've seen people facing increased isolation, lack of connectedness and engagement with their organizations. And oftentimes, if they're working from home, instead of, as a lot of employers feared, people working less, they actually were working longer because you log in. Like myself, oftentimes I'm logged in before I've even showered. And then at the end of the day, lunch tends to take place right here in front of the computer. So people were working longer hours, facing isolation, and that just added to the stress of what was going on. You add to that right now, present, if you have a question, Niraj, please post it in the chat. If you look at right now, the things that are going on with the economic forecast and how a lot of companies are having to tighten their belts and do more with less, that just exacerbates the issues and challenges that we've already been seeing. So for example, things like hiring slowdowns or freezes in hiring. In some cases, there's been layoffs, and certainly at Microsoft, we've seen that as well. And many of our partners, our customers are in the same boat and facing that. We've seen projects that have halted or delayed, and that just continues to add to the stresses that we feel within our workplace, which then highlights the importance of really delivering this enhanced employee experience to employees that can help for a couple of things. Number one, wow, we just keep having people joining. It's ding, 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 ding. So number one, seeing that with an employee experience, being able to provide connection for employees, whether they're on-premise, remote, wherever they're at, being able to connect with people across the organization and help them to feel that connectedness and engagement with their employers. Number two, for not only individuals, but for managers and executives to have actionable insight into the organizational health of their company and to be able to take action on things as they see various stressors affecting the workplace and having the insight into that. Fostering a sense of purpose within role and within people's employment so that they feel not only that connectedness, but it's more than just, punching in hours and getting a paycheck. That's a big part of the employee experience that has really taken center stage with many organizations. And then finally, the ability to facilitate growth within and across roles, both within a present role that somebody might be doing, as well as, if they want to be mobile and go to aspire to other roles within that organization. So lastly, looking at that, Microsoft has set about delivering really this end-to-end employee experience platform, not just an employee experience across growth, not just an employee experience around training or around communications, but end-to-end across all areas. We're calling it Microsoft Viva. Today, we're going to be focusing on a sense of purpose, which really is taking center, because as you're having to do more with less, you don't want people working on things that aren't in tight alignment with the aspirations of the organization. So being able to provide OKRs and have that insight and line of sight to that across the org, more important than ever, which brings what we're going to talk about today with Don. And so I'm going to turn it over to you. And if you want, I don't know if you want to share your desktop or you want me to click through, it's up to you.
Let's just keep it as is and you can click through. That'll be great.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, super excited to be here for this opportunity to talk to folks here about OKRs, which are objectives and key results, and Viva Goals. A little bit about myself. My name is Don Campbell. I'm the Senior Director here at Microsoft. I've been here at Microsoft for about 15 years. I run a group called the OEA, which is an acronym for OKR Enterprise Accelerator Team. It's a long acronym, but simply what it means is my team is here to help onboard Microsoft to OKRs, leveraging Viva Goals. So we have a large set of scope in front of us in terms of, over 200,000 employees getting into OKRs and leveraging Viva Goals. And then the second part of our mission is to then take our learnings and our insights and our successes and then build that into the product, build that into the program, and then have that help to serve our customers like yourself. So that's a little bit of context of who I am and my work here at Microsoft. What I want to do today is, as we talk about OKRs, Michael did a great job of framing up. It's two things. It's really that employee experience as well as how we actually drive measurable results for the business. So today what I want to do is talk to you guys a little bit about the Microsoft journey and some insights we've had along the way. That usually then kind of teases into a conversation about, okay, as we look to adopt OKRs and Viva Goals, like what are some of the things that really drive success? What are the ingredients we need to have so that this formula actually delivers what we're hoping it to deliver? And then we'll end with some common obstacles. And my hope is at the end of this, you guys have some context for how we've been working along this, and then some takeaways in terms of as you think about adoption and or the things that drive it or could serve as obstacles, how you might think about that going forward. So with that, Michael, if we go ahead and go here to the next slide. So Microsoft has been on this journey for a couple of years now. What I would say is it started kind of more grassroots approach. We then had the opportunity to acquire Ally, which then became Viva Goals, and now Viva Goals is actually part of the Microsoft Viva suite that Michael talked about. So we've been doing this for about 2-3 years, but when we had the opportunity to acquire Ally and then create it as part of the employee experience, we really went full speed in terms of adoption of OKRs, leveraging Viva Goals. And what I want to do is talk to you kind of about 4 things in our journey. One is the culture. Then we'll talk about deployment, then adoption, and then what is this yielding for us at Microsoft? So the first one is, I would say, culture. It's super, super important. And just to kind of ground folks, as we talk about objectives, key results, and initiatives, that's the taxonomy we use. An objective is a qualitative, aspirational goal for a team and or organization or company. A key result is the measurable outcome that will contribute to the achievement of that objective. And then we have key initiatives, which are the core activities that will be taken to achieve that objective. So you'll hear me say O's and KRs throughout this. So just to ground folks on the taxonomy. But what we found as we've talked about aligning folks and giving people purpose and understanding how my work actually accrues up, the culture is super, super important, and serves as the foundation. And we mean that by really keeping the employee value at the center. The employee needs to understand, how is OKRs and leveraging Viva Goal going to help me be successful, going to help me accrue, help me understand how my work actually ladders up into what the company is doing from a mission, value, and culture perspective. We find a lot of times that companies do a great job of the mission and the value and the culture. They do a great job of the initiatives and projects, but there's that middle layer, those OKRs, those objectives and key results, that connective tissue that seem to have some opportunity to get more refined. And when we are able to tie that together from front to back, the employee value and experience just increases exponentially. We also find that showcasing executive sponsorship, OKRs is a culture, it's a program, it's a practice. Viva Goals is a tool set that supports it, but it's super important for the company to know that there's executive sponsorship and buy-in, and to see the actual executives running their business and driving decisions on what to do or not to do and how that ladders up into their actual mission, values, and culture, to see that at the leadership level. So we found it's very important to make sure the executives are bought in. Now, you can still have grassroots teams and departments adopt, and over time, it can actually pull up into the leadership. But we found the time to value is much better if we have that executive sponsorship at the front. OKRs have to underpin your culture. As tactical examples, it's how we talk today. It's how in the Viva Goals team we talk about what we're doing and how does that ladder in. It gives us the ability to say no, not now, because there's not a clear lineage of how that ladders up. So it's really the program and the practice and the culture that's super key that we found as part of our journey. Well, once we have that, we then move into deployment. So how do we deploy? When do we deploy? How do we operationalize this? We found it super important, and this isn't probably a surprise to many, is really defining your why. Why are you looking to enable OKRs? Is it alignment? Is it transparency? Is it the lineage? What are the things that you want to make sure that you actually pull out of the OKR practice leveraging Viva Goals? So really getting clear and spending that time up front versus running too quickly into deployment of a tool set, really being clear of what your definition of success is. We've also found that choosing what we call your deployment model or depth in an organization is super important. A lot of folks will end up saying, hey, I understand it, I'm in, I want to enable, but where do I start? What should I think about? Should I pilot a small group? Should I go all in from an organization perspective? So having that dialogue of really understanding, hey, what's the deployment model? We have 4 deployment models. One is basically an organization, which means, hey, I want to go all in and run my collective organization. We have one where it's more leadership led first. So the leadership or executive leadership aligns first to basically prove it out, test it out, and then set the foundation for the rest of the organization to adopt. And then we have a department or team, which are smaller kind of pilots or taste testing of how this might work in your organization, but being really clear on what the deployment model is. And then once you've decided that, really enabling it in the business and your current workflow. I think a lot of folks look at it as here's another thing or another process or another tool set, and it's really not. Folks are planning right now. Folks are creating their priorities right now. And so it's a framework and a set of tooling to help enable that just in a more efficient way that actually creates transparency and one stop shopping for everyone to see that from front to back. So enabling that in your monthly business reviews, your quarterly business reviews, and your workflow where you are versus trying to create something up on top of it or in addition. The last thing in deployments is there's a lot of work to understand the practice, to get the executive sponsorship, employee at the center, deploy, and then people end up not doing the regular check-ins and dashboards. And so what we found is that's where the value of the conversation and dialogue occurs. Hey, we did this particular initiative or project, or we had this specific key result. Is it truly working? No, adjust, stop, move, change. So these check-ins and this consistent dialogue and iterating is super important to get the value. And so we encourage in deployment, it's not just this deployment and we're done, but it's part of the practice and the culture that every month and every quarter we're checking in, we're evaluating, we have a growth mindset, where are we doing well, where should we shift and move. So those are some of the deployment components. From an adoption perspective, OKRs, the definition of an objective is to be 70 or 80% attainable. It's not a 100%. If we set it at 100%, then we're not aspiring. We're not having a large enough growth mindset. And so to do that, though, you have to ensure some psychological safety within the conversation. You have to normalize intelligent failure. The goal is not to get 100%. It's to shoot for 70 or 80% because the goals are aspirational. Now, you can also have goals and or objectives that must be met, meaning they must meet the number, and you can have what we call aspirational objectives. But basically, we're looking to push the organization, push the departments, push the individuals to stretch for more. But to do that, they have to feel safe. If they show up as red, that's fine. If they show up as under their objective, that's fine. So building that psychological safety and then failing fast and forward in that growth mindset is super important. If that's not set, then folks will tend to not set those aspirational goals. They won't stretch, and then we're really not realizing the most value that we can. Building what we call champs. Think of these as the folks that are highly invested. They can be the planning folks in your organization, chiefs of staff in your organization, key people that really are championing this OKR practice and program, and having that community and evangelism. Again, this is culture. This isn't a top-down, push-down type of approach, but building that community and evangelism we found super important. Think of it as kind of a hub-spoke model where basically these champs are running their programs, feeding in best-in-class practices, learning, iterating, and then the organization creates this flywheel effect where everyone is leveraging each other's successes and learnings to make things better as they move forward. So when we talk about culture and deployment and adoption, so Don, where's Microsoft at? What outcomes? You'll hear us talk about outcomes versus outputs. Where are you at? We have OKRs supporting a purpose-driven culture, absolutely 100%. And Viva Goals is enabling that focus and alignment and stretching. We're not done with our journey. I'd say we're very much in the middle of our journey. We have probably, don't quote my numbers, but 70 plus organizations within Microsoft having and or in process or planning to adopt. Our goal is to continue to move that even farther in terms of their OKR practices and leveraging Viva Goals. And it is driving the outcomes that we want, that transparency, that alignment, that lineage, and that stretch. So that's a little bit about the Microsoft journey and insights. I could talk for hours about it. But what we then kind of find is that we then pull into, okay, Don, that's great. What are the actual drivers? If I'm thinking about this for my organization and I want to have the next kind of conversation, how do I think about the actual drivers of success? So Michael, if we'll go ahead and click here to the next slide. We've found that awareness and truly understanding what OKRs is, what Viva Goals does, its value, how it's going to help drive business value, and then how to use it is super important. So we spent a good amount of time making sure that people understand the program and the practice and the product. And then how is that going to actually be enabled within the rhythm of business? I think a lot of folks will say, well, I'm not sure I understand objectives. Is that different than past strategies and things I've heard? What's the difference? What's a KR input versus a KR output? Is a project really an outcome? Is it an output? So really ensuring that the awareness of the organization of what this OKR practice and thought process is, and then making sure that they understand the Viva Goals and the tooling and its value combined. Because again, this is the program and practice and product put together, which equals the value, and then how to use it. And that how to use it is really back to that rhythm of business. Like, how are we going to use it? When are we going to use it? What does it replace? What does it complement? Things like scorecards and other things that people ask. The alignment, really showing when you clearly show the alignment between employees' work, initiatives, or projects, and how that ladders up to key results and objectives and the priorities and value and culture and mission, it is truly amazing how employees' sense of purpose and clarity light up. And we have a whole bunch of data and research and stats that support this. But seeing that alignment and showing them that alignment is super important and drives adoption. It also, at the employee level, allows people to have the dialogue, a safe dialogue with management to say no or not now, or question, how does this piece of work actually accrue, and ladder up. And so it opens this dialogue and this safe place to answer and reply back to the, I'm not sure why I should be doing this now or how this ladders up. Engagement. The engagement is key because this is a long-term adoption. This isn't something we're going to do for just a project. It's not something we're going to do for just 6 months. This is actually how we're going to run our business. This is how we're going to make decisions, and we're going to do it with data-driven goals, our objectives, and then our key results, and then our leadership is actually supporting that. So when you look at awareness, alignment, engagement, these are the things that we find really help to drive adoption. And looking across, then basically ensuring how you ingest this into what you're currently doing. I think a lot of folks think that this is an on top type of thing, and it's not. As an example, at Microsoft, we are approaching our FY24 fiscal planning, and we're already creating strategy memos and pillar documents and things of that nature. And so that's setting objectives and key results. So it's just teasing that out, then enabling that in Viva Goals, where it's one-stop shop for everyone to see and ladder up. And it just creates this great alignment and transparency going up. Those are the successful adoption drivers. I'll get to the questions here in the chat shortly once I finish here this last slide. Michael, let's go ahead and hop to the last slide here. So absolutely transparent. We have not been perfect at Microsoft as we've rolled out. We have definitely lots of learnings, and we build that into our future state rollouts and product. One of the things is lack of mission, vision, and values. If we think about this pyramid, that's what we're anchoring off of. And so the vital components which determine the objectives are based off that framework. So really making sure that the mission and the vision and the values are understood or super clear, because you then attach those O's and KRs that then get to your actual initiatives and projects. So really making sure that's clear. I think a lot of folks say, well, of course we have a mission and vision and values, but when you start going deeper into the organization, who's going to create OKRs to ladder up and attach, it ends up creating an interesting dialogue to see how solid is that mission, vision, and values. Lack of focus. This is, I think a lot of folks, when they start, try to take what they have and just copy paste. They have a 100 set scorecard that they try to pull in, but really focusing to 3 to 5 O's, objectives, and 3 to 5 KRs for each one of those objectives. If you start looking at, and we said, hey, for your organization, what are the top 3 objectives? That's it. And within each one of those objectives, what are the 3 to 5 key results? That's it. I think a lot of folks end up just trying to pull too much in and lose that focus. And so one of the common obstacles we have is having that dialogue. We've had instances where we're working with leadership and they have 20, and then saying, is it really that 20 or is it really these 3? So how do we increase that focus? Another common obstacle is lack of patience and or commitment. This is a culture, it's a practice, it's a program, it's not a checkbox. And so we find a lot of folks are looking for immediate, once we've deployed that next week, we're going to see the value materialize. And it's not quite that. It will materialize over time, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. You will see that without a doubt. But I think a lot of folks can tend to look at this as, I've checked the box, we're in Viva Goals, I have O's and KRs set up, where's my value? So that lack of patience and or commitment is something we've seen. If people then ask, well, how long till I get my value? What's my time to value? Basically 3 months. And why we say 3 months is once you've deployed, you basically have check-ins on a monthly basis. After 3 months, you've had those check-ins, those dialogues about those O's, those KRs, those projects and initiatives, and you start teasing out some pretty good insight in terms of, am I doing the right things and are they yielding the results I'm looking for? So within about 3 months, you basically, if you're doing your regular check-ins, to my earlier slide and point, you'll start to actually see the value come to play. And that's the last one, the lack of regular check-ins. This is a dialogue. This is iteration. This is tweaking and tuning and failing fast and looking at your successes and building off of them in a consistent way over time. And so we definitely encourage, and in transparently, it's something that even internal to Microsoft that I am helping other organizations do as well, as having that consistent rhythm, because it's the dialogue and that consistency that really helps to tease out the areas we need to focus and or change. So that was a little bit about the Microsoft journey, a little bit about what we see are the major drivers of successful adoption. And then these are what we have as some of the common obstacles that we've seen. We continue to grow and learn and iterate. Like we said, we still have a ways to go to be able to say that all of Microsoft is in and on and running OKRs via Viva Goals. But Michael, that's where we're at. And what I will do now is I will start to look into the chat here and answer some of the questions within the chat.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll let you feel the ones that we have now, and then we'll go ahead and show goals after that.
Awesome. All right, so psychological safety. Yeah, interesting term. Yeah, it's really what we find is if you're in a monthly business review or quarterly business review, if employees don't feel comfortable stretching and they feel they're going to be overly precision questioned in a meeting because they're yellow or red, we find that the behavior is then to undercommit and try to over deliver, and that's really not the goal of what we're trying to do. We're trying to stretch and move. So that psychological safety and being able to have intelligent fail fast is super important to the culture of which you build. And that's also why the executive sponsorship is super important, that they buy into that and then they help to set the tone for the organization or the company. Typical timeline for effective goals deployment, and what are the recommended skill sets required from an admin point of view? Yep, great question. So depending on the program type that we talked about, like the organization or leadership or department or a team and department are smaller subsets. So we say, anywhere, you can get something up like that running up in about 2 weeks time. If you're looking for something more at an organizational or an executive leadership perspective, we put a 4 to 6 week time frame on it. Again, these are timeframes. It all depends on the size of the organization, the complexity, the level of sponsorship. If I go back to those successful drivers, how many of those do you have right now to start versus having to grow and influence towards? But within 4 to 6 weeks, we found internal to Microsoft, we can get that particular organization up, moving, going, and into that rhythm. Let's see here. We'll have to make a really tight business case for the value. Looking for inputs. Yeah. So this is looking for inputs on ROI, and how you've been able to quantify the product. Yeah, no, it's a great question. So there's a couple ways where, definitely in the comments that Michael made about, hey, things are tight and doing more with less. Leveraging this OKR practice and Viva Goals is actually a wonderful business case to be able to do more with less. I won't be able to answer it all here, but we actually have a view of what we call kind of our superpowers: transparency, alignment, et cetera, where we use those to depict that value. So as we roll out to Microsoft, there's the deployment kind of value in terms of, hey, did we deploy successfully? Did we enable the actual initial deployment? Well, great. Then it's the post that 3 months and 6 months, showing the value that it's actually been driving, is the second part. And then the third part, which we're actually working on within the tooling, is a program health, which really in tool with data says, hey, what's the program health of my practice within Viva Goals via analytics of what people are doing in the tools, setting up objectives, closing things out, KR obtainment, things of that nature. So within tool, you can actually see for that program, is it successful, and how are we defining success? So maybe we can take that as an action, Michael, to get back in terms of like how we think about the pivot of a business case. But it is pretty amazing at how well the practice and the program and the methodology married up with the tooling gets you focused on in this macroeconomic environment where we've got to do more with less. And so the business case is there, and it usually, like I said, teases out in about 3 to 6 months. Let's see here. What else do we have? We have been on Allied.io. Yeah, if leadership does not fully adopt OKRs and the transparency of them, the employees won't either. Yeah, no, it's a great call out. It's one of our successful adoption components. Having executive buy-in is super important. And what we found is really having the conversation with our executive leaders, making them aware, that was one of our points, of what's the practice and why, what's the value set. And then truly understanding what are the blockers for them. What are the things that prevent them from adopting and or would accelerate them towards getting towards adoption. Transparency has come up a couple times, which is interesting. One of the key things we talk about is the value of transparency and being able to see that up and down. We also are building and continue to build within the tool that there are some things that leadership may not want transparent, that may be not public or financial numbers or other things of that nature where they don't want a broad organization to see those. So we are actually working on what we call private OKRs and or team structures. So we're in the process of building that. We've had the same dialogue within Microsoft, whether it be financials or security or other areas that says, hey, I do want to be transparent with my organization for the lion's share majority, but there are some things that are not to be shared broadly. And so I want to keep them leveraging OKRs, and I want to keep them in Viva Goals, but I want that to be private to a smaller set of folks. So we're actually working on that within Viva Goals. How many O's are too many for a 400-person team? That's a great question. A lot of that depends on that 400-person team. If it's one organization, multiple organizations, is that literally one organization together, or do I have a marketing and a product and an HR and a legal, so there's a little bit more about the organization grouping of that. If the 400-person team is, nope, we're all in the same organization, I'm making this up, marketing, then I would say basically you're looking for 3 to 5 O's and 3 to 5 KRs per O. And we use that as a guiding, as a generic guidepost to get to the focus. We find if we don't do that, we end up with 20 objectives and 80 KRs underneath, and it really lacks that focus. So 400-person team, if they're all in one similar org, what I would challenge you guys to do is to get to 3 objectives with 3 to 5 KRs under each objective. I'm a Scrum Master. I think the value will be obvious. Are there any KPIs that would provide some sense of improvement to one's LT or customers? I'm not sure if I follow that question. There's definitely conversations about KPIs or metrics and scorecards versus that of key results. So I might have to follow up on that one. How do we connect strategic planning to OKRs? Oh, that's perfect. Should OKRs fully represent the entirety of corporate team strategies? Yeah, so the way we think about it is this pyramid where you have your mission, values, and cultures on the top. Then you have your priorities, your objectives, your key results, and initiatives. So we do see it as a laddering. And so strategic planning is, and as I mentioned before, how we're connecting our FY24 planning is with strategic planning. That sets the anchoring for everything to come off of that. So if I'm doing something in my daily work or quarterly work that doesn't have a laddering up, it provides me the opportunity to say why. Now, there could be exceptions, but I would definitely pivot off of things like strategic planning, financial planning, those rhythms where you're already doing the work, you're already having the dialogue, but then crafting that within an OKR taxonomy, increasing the focus, and then enabling that lineage through Viva Goals all the way down into the employee base. Those, what I call kind of critical path milestones within your business rhythm, are super important. So that's definitely a great place to start. Now, how far you want to cascade it goes back to your deployment type. Do you want to do the strategic planning just at the all-up level, leadership level, and stop? Or do you want to do it for your all-up organization, leadership, and all your departments and drive down? That just gets to how do you want to adopt, and at what pace do you want to adopt? Is there a solution to connect people annual 90-day personal goal? Yeah, so in the tool within Viva Goals, you can set organizational, team, or individual. We probably don't have enough time here, but there's a lot of dialogue about, Don, help me understand the difference between OKR management and performance management, individual performance management. To be clear, at the moment, Microsoft sees a distinction between those two. There is a bit of connective tissue, but we do not pay, comp, reward, or evaluate our individual employees or work given OKRs. Now, one could say, well, the work I'm doing, the activities and the deliverables that I'm creating do accrue up, which is absolutely valid. But the way we award and evaluate employees are based on so many things. How do I help others? My manager expectations, my leadership expectations, building off of others, what I actually deliver myself. So there's so many components. So there is a bit of connective tissue, but at Microsoft, our stance isn't, oh, take your individual objectives or key results, copy paste them into your performance evaluation. We have a tool called Connect, and then run off that. We don't make that direct lineage associated to that. And sorry, I'm thinking of KPIs that demonstrate the value of Givo being deployed, given that a team is already. Okay, and then back, I think this last question here is also about, like, how do we think about the business case or value? So, Michael, definitely we'll have an action to come back and basically provide, hey, here's how we think about the value prop or value set for Viva Goals and OKRs. Can the tool do the roll-up of visibility of OKs, for example? Yes, so from a roll-up, Yeah, so from a roll-up, you absolutely can. And that gets to part of your deployment too. As you think about your OKRs, we have different approaches where you have basically a tight coupling, which means it's a ladder, or a loose coupling. But the way in which you can see those, and Michael probably will show here a little bit, how you can actually have that laddering. And it's super important part of the value, because it shows how your work actually ladders up and creates lineage all the way up. So all right, with that and given time, I'll let Michael go ahead and go here through the demo.
All right, so we're going to open up. We're going to do a brief demonstration, just kind of showing you the UI, a little bit behind the scenes. And the first thing, just to call out as we drop into here, is you will note that I am within the single pane of glass to get work done, Microsoft Teams. So when we talk about Viva and this whole employee experience, bringing it to people wherever they're at, phone or desktop, where they're at. And so we're in a what we call smarter health, and you'll notice the misspelling. It's an old joke going way back, where the person who originally set it up misspelled when they typed it in and set up our domain name. But for smarter health, we have an instance of Viva Goals set up, and you'll notice we go through that the UI itself, it's very straightforward. We provide holistic views where we can see across organization. I can also see my own OKRs. I'm going to bring you into some of the admin pieces and show you the back end, but we can create report views. We can create filtered views that we serve up and serve out. But the idea is that it is simple. So somebody was asking about nested OKRs and, key results. And you can see here in this particular one, when I click on it, I see some projects that are feeding up into it. So we have, maintain these goals. Let's pick on one, improve patient outcomes. I think that's got a couple of key results. So you can see that those are nested here. Best place to work in. One of these should have some nested. There's a lot. People keep adding, and here we go. So here's one where we have a OKR that somebody set up, increase operational efficiency. We have some key results, and then some additional OKRs for a subgroup that are nested and roll up into it. In all of these, there's a couple of things that we can do here where we can assign owners readily, multiple owners for one. We can, if it's manual, we can actually affect the progress right here just by clicking. But to set up an OKR itself, it is simple. We come in, we say add an objective, and then we'll go ahead and add, type in the name. We'll give some details, give the owner or owners, what type is it, when is it, and we can set the dates and times around that, the outcome we're looking for, and then progress. And this is where it gets interesting. So number one, we can do automatic roll-up from key results, bring that. We can have check-in owner and bring that in, right? We can also do it manually. And then if we have set up integration to other systems, that's where we get into the key results. I'll show you where that'll pop up as an additional attribute. We can actually tie in things, for example, like a project that's happening. Maybe you have Planner, Microsoft Planner, where you're maintaining, and people are already entering progress and updates and status there. We can tie those things in, a JIRA, and bring those things in automatically. So again, in the flow of work, people continue doing what they're doing and then have things automatically flow in. A couple of other areas right around here. So for example, if I come back, I'm going to select admin because I have back end. Here's where we can set up, permissions around these. We can set up things like our integrations. So you can see here we have a whole range of different third party and first party. The biggest competitor to Goals is actually Excel. So if you're already doing, I had a customer who has tons of Excel sheets they're doing OKRs in. we can import that, but we can also tie things in and have automatic integration. We have GitHub. Here you can see Jira. There's a whole range of integrations possible that we can set up and then have that data tie in and have it, again, people work where they're working and have it feed up. We can also configure the OKR model configuration. And this gets to that question that we saw earlier about rolling up. Where do we want to allow objectives to be nested under key results, right? So if I deselect, you'll see it'll change on the fly. So here I have an OKR, a key result, but there's another OKR nested underneath the key result and another key result. So we can set these things up going through. I had a customer the other day who was using the trial, and I was talking to them about this, and they're like, I don't see roll-ups. I don't see that. We brought them into the back end here, and on the fly, they were able to quickly change it. They're like, oh my goodness, this is exactly what we were looking for. So here you can see you can come in the back end through admin, set those up, things with OKR and projects. And finally, you can also import data if you're on Ally, and wanting to bring that over. This is where you would do that. Last, if I come out here again, we can see not only our OKRs, we can see dashboards that are available here. We can come in and take a look at that. We can affect changes and edit what's being shown there. We can also share and export these out. So maybe you want to share that out to other users in your org. We can go ahead and do so. You can copy a link and leverage that. And then when you are having those meetings, we also have a present view. So whatever dashboards you've set up with your discrete views you're wanting to go ahead and review, you can go ahead and put it into present mode and get a nice clean UI without all the other wrappings. But the idea is this is easy to set up. It's easy to integrate. People can continue to work in the applications that may be feeding up into those key results and have it all available here. So I see, oh, that's us. Ours are in Excel. You're not alone. When individuals are added, does it notify in Teams activity or does it come via Outlook mail? So we do have some admin settings around notifications where we can set up, what's going to happen and when that's going to happen. I don't know, Don, if you wanted to speak to any of that.
Yeah, I'm actually looking. I wanted to make sure I give the right answer. So I'm researching right now. I don't know that it actually gives you a formal notification. I need to look that up. I've got a chat going in parallel to answer that.
All right. And so those are some of the things that they're asking. If we create a new org, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna do the new org one. Will it impact other departments? I think that gets to the setup at the beginning. You can spending some time up front and what I'll say architecting for the future. So if you're saying, hey, I'm thinking about doing this org within my collective org, let's just make up these numbers. It's 1 of 5. I do think it's good to say, hey, if the end state is to have all 5 onboarded, to think about what that structure is and do the work up front to set it up, even if it's a container that's empty for a while, versus not giving too much foresight to where you want to go. Now, if I set up an org and then I set up a department and then I set up another org, can I move and shift them around? Yes, you can. But putting some more context to that up front just helps you save some cycles down the road when you look to onboard those incremental organizations or departments.
Excellent. Yeah, and the last thing I did want to show this real quick. And somebody's asking, what does it look like for someone in Viva Goals who is not? They just don't have access to all the same pieces that I'm seeing, right? So, right here, I'm seeing admin and, we've got the guide, but they're just going to see what they've been provided access to.
Yeah, the UI that Michael's going through and this objective view that you see here, right, is exactly what the user sees.
I did want to highlight this because a lot of times when I talk to customers, they're taken by surprise, pleasantly surprised. But you know, if we go into the Explorer, which is available here on the left, you'll notice it has things like overdue OKRs, all my objectives, not updated, behind. But we can create on the fly views that you both want to display as well as maybe share and push out to others. So, for example, I can come in and we can start to build a filtered view. You can see here, aligned, has check-ins, created date, due, integration, keep. We can go through and start to build out a filtered view with the parameters we want to provide. You know, a lot of times executives like these and make that available to them, but provide exactly what somebody needs on the fly, and it's all drag and drop, point and click. And that's, again, the beauty of this is it doesn't take, there's not this huge bar to entry to get started. You know, we have some online training. We certainly have some programs that we're going to talk about in just a minute around this, but it's not, that's what I love about this, Don. It's not hard. I mean, I never saw OKRs until goals. And then I was like, oh, I can make an OKR.
Yeah, to Michael's point, it's meant to be, and we continue to be as user-friendly as possible. And when we talk about user, we're talking about the individual employee going in and leveraging the tool. You heard some of the comments here from Michael, and just to highlight the ability to create dashboards and the ability to say, hey, as I do my check-ins and closeouts, and my ability to quickly and easily make dashboards that I can then surface in those monthly reviews or quarterly business reviews. That's kind of at the end state. I'd also highlight, we don't have enough time here, but the integrations that we have within Viva Goals. So a lot of folks go, well, okay, I use ADO or Power BI or Slack or Jira, or name your basically kind of work process in our tool set. And how does that work? Well, as we have projects and initiatives, you can actually, and he's showing it right here, we have integrations where you can actually pull that data in and align that. So this isn't about a copy paste. This isn't about, hey, multiple disconnected tools. This is an integrated tool set that allows you to be where you are in work and basically then pull that up and show how that ladders up into the OKR framework.
Yeah, and I got to say, the one that got me the most excited, which they just recently added, Power BI, because so many of our customers are creating all these custom reports. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can tie right into that report and have it feed those key results. I did want to highlight, it's not just the tool itself. It's easy to get rocking and rolling with it. The real thing is understanding the OKR methodology and framework. And that's really where it's, this isn't, a project plan. It's not, just key results or KPIs. This is OKRs are different and how we're, approaching that. Oh, planner board. Yeah. Planner board feeds. Planner is actually, oh, there it is. Planner is actually one of those that'll feed right in. So
yeah, Michael says we have multiple integrations that you'll see here. We also have more on our roadmap, which we can also share out post this. But the key here is to be in what we call the flow of work of where you already are doing the work, the initiatives, the projects, the scenarios, the tasks, the epics, the whatever your work taxonomy is. And in that flow of work, be able to pull and integrate up into, so it ladders nicely into those objectives and key results. So you have that lineage, that transparency, and that sense of purpose of what you're doing and why it's important.
So before we sign out here today, I want to, Jen Myers, would you unmute yourself? You have the ability to do that. And you should show yourself, say hello. You had something you wanted to share with our customers, in particular, our healthcare and life science ones who are attending today.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael, and thanks, Don. I love this session because every time we talk about goals, it gets people pretty excited about the possibilities. And Don, you said it, architecting for the future. I love that. I actually wrote it down. So one thing that we're doing for a limited time is we're actually offering a 60-day Viva Goals production pilot. And so the idea behind it is, let's help you identify the use cases you have for OKRs, provide you with the training, setup, adoption, kind of a 60-day sprint to get you going with this. So the way to request it is reach out to your account teams. If you're eligible, we'll definitely, work with you to get this going. But it's a great opportunity to kind of get started, ramp quickly, and architect for the future successfully, as Don pointed out. Thanks, Michael.
No, thank you, Jen. And Jen's one of our, well, introduce yourself in your role real quick.
I guess I should have done that before. Yeah, so I talk all things employee experience to health and life sciences organizations. So we get to talk about this all the time. So I look forward to potentially working with you if we haven't already met and worked together before. So Thanks for including me, Mike.
So one last question, Don. Somebody asked, can we share the slides that were presented today?
Absolutely. Happy to share those slides out, and want to help each one of you. If you already are a customer or hoping and soon to be a customer, we're here to help you in any way we can. So absolutely happy to share those out.
Well, I think that's a wrap for today. Don, I want to thank you very much. This is, goals is huge. And when we talk about doing more with less, I think at that core, really, we're talking about making sure people that our work, our projects and things are in alignment with our corporate OKRs. That's huge. And I even heard somebody talking about no KRs the other day, which I thought was interesting. Yeah. So
no, absolutely. It's an awesome opportunity to get what I call the employee experience and the business value that the organizations are trying to drive. So it's definitely an and versus an or. So super exciting.
Well, with that, I want to thank everybody for joining. We will be posting the recording from today's session, as well as the slides and some associated links to aka.ms/HLS blog. That's aka.ms/HLS blog. I'll have that up this afternoon. You'll be able to go there. There's also, I'll be engaging there if you need to ask some follow-up questions or looking for follow-up resources. So go ahead and feel free to, post your questions there. But I want to thank everybody. I especially want to thank Don for being gracious and joining us today, and wish you all a wonderful weekend. Take care. And as always, ciao, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, folks.